What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about the top 5 best budget gaming phones that you can get for around the $300 to $200 price bracket here. And guys, I would avoid mid-range phones. I would just easily go with a older flagship phone because the power of these chipsets just kill pretty much almost all mid-range chips unless it's like a Poco X3 Pro, which we'll talk about later. But this phone, the OnePlus 8, is really awesome. I got it for like 250 on eBay. You can check eBay and Amazon. Sometimes the prices fluctuate. But this is an amazing phone. So we do have the Snapdragon 865 chip in the Adreno 650. And then this phone, it doesn't have SD card support, unfortunately, but you do have 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM on here. And guys, this phone just flies with performance. If you guys check out the actual gaming test that I did, you can see I'm able to max out every game on here at max FPS. So I think I was able to play everything at 60 frames, which is absolutely crazy. So Fortnite, PUBG, all of that stuff. This phone also has a 90 hertz display. It's HDR10 plus at 6.5 inches. It's 1080p 402 for the PPI. So it's a really nice looking panel. And like I said, the 90 hertz only adds to the smoothness of the gaming experience as well too. It also has a premium design. It's a glass and metal design on here, and then you also have on here really good sounding stereo speakers on here as well as NFC. The under the display fingerprint sensor is on board, and then you also have really good battery life, a 4300 milliamp battery with 30-watt charging on here, so you can game on here for a good period of time. And the battery life it's not like the craziest battery life, but I feel like it's definitely an all-day phone. You also have pretty decent camera setup. It's not the best. It's a 48 megapixel standard and 16 megapixel ultra wide, a 2 megapixel macro. It's not the quality of the images, it's how OnePlus was doing the coloring on their older flagships is what I don't like. So you would have to edit the photos. It shoots in 4K 60 and 1080p 30, and then the selfie cam is 16 megapixels. It takes really good photos, but like I said, sometimes the coloring is just really off with these older OnePlus phones. But yeah, so this is just an amazing phone to consider. It's super powerful. Alright guys, next is going to be the LG V60. I think this is the best gaming phone on the list because it's got the power and it's got other functionalities that we'll talk about here. So this also has the Snapdragon 865 chip, and it is running Android 12 currently, Adreno 650. But this phone also has micro SD card support as well too. So if you download a lot of games and like PSP emulators, whatever, you can actually go ahead and just put a ton of stuff on here. You know, just add another 512 gigabyte card and you're dealing with a lot of storage, right? The base storage is 128 gigs and 8 gigs of RAM, which is really nice. This phone flies through, again, gaming, Fortnite, PUBG. I played them all. Check out those videos. And it runs super smooth on here. So you're getting a very powerful chip. You also have a very big display to game on at 6.8 inches. It's a POLED HDR10 plus display at 1080p 395 for the PPI. Now the V60 does not have any type of high refresh rate. So if you really need that, I would go with the OnePlus 8. You have a really beefy design on here. It's a really sturdy aluminum frame, glass back. It's IP68 dust and water resistant on here as well too. The stereo speakers are really amazing as well too. So really loud, really nice sounding. And in addition, if you have really good headphones, you get a really nice immersive experience because this has the quad DAC headphone jack built into it, which is really nice. All your little bells and whistles like NFC. This also has dual screen case functionality as well too. So if you want a game, you can have some games are compatible with the split screen, which will, I think, make the experience even cooler. You have an under the display fingerprint sensor, which is actually a little bit smoother now with this Android 12 update. And then the cameras, I think, are still pretty good on here. It's a 64 megapixel standard, a 13 megapixel ultra wide, a 0.3 depth sensor. It shoots in 8K 30 with a 10 megapixel selfie, and also shoots in 4K 30. So you get some really good images with the V60 still, and also video. So the main thing is that the battery life is really amazing on the V60, and this has really good standby time as well too. So it's a 5,000 milliamp battery, and then you also have your wireless charging on here. Battery life is absolutely outstanding. You get well over 6 hours of screen on time with this phone. It has one of the best battery lives on this list. So definitely check out the V60. And like I said, it's super cheap right now, around like the 250 to 300. So it's very cheap. All right, next would be the iPhone XS. And what I love about this phone coming into 2022 for gaming is that the price keeps going down on this phone. I think this phone is actually like crazy cheap for what you still get with this phone, the quality of it. So it's like 257 on Amazon, and you still get the Apple A12 chip, which if you see my videos, this phone still plays pretty much anything at high settings. It's still a very powerful phone. So this phone is going to be running, the next version of iOS, maybe another 3 to 4 years, if not more, because it's just the powerhouse. It's just really fast. So for gaming, I really like this. And why I picked this phone over the iPhone 11, because one, the iPhone 11 is slightly more expensive, but it's not that much more powerful than the XS. But that's not really the thing, right? The thing is that this phone has the OLED display on here. It's HDR10. I just think the display just looks better in my opinion. It's at 5.8 inches, so if you have smaller hands, it's kind of more compact friendly. And plus, it's a 1080p plus resolution display as well too at 458 for the PPI. So overall, I feel like the screen, with the gaming experience is just overall just better on this phone. In general. So this phone has 64 gigs of internal storage, which is definitely a little low, 4 gigs of RAM. So the phone, like I said, is still super smooth. I think the design still looks really beautiful on here. It's still a really nice, classy looking design on here. Glass back, stainless steel frame. It's IP68, dust and water resistant. It's still a really nice, beautiful phone to look at. The speakers are fantastic on the XS, still very loud, tons of bass. Face ID works really well on here. The cameras actually have aged pretty well. So it's a 12 megapixel standard and then a 12 megapixel telephoto. Does 2x optical zoom, and then it shoots in 4K, 24, 30, and 60 with a 7 megapixel selfie that shoots in 1080p 60. Like I said, image quality still looks good on the XS. Now battery life, it varies on your battery health. So I always say, try to aim for 85%, 84% if you're buying these phones used refurbished. They're not allowed to sell you actually anything under 80%. So if it's under 80%, you return the phone. It has a 2658 milliamp battery, 15 watt charging, wireless charging. I can squeeze about 5 hours, 30 minutes to 6 hours of screen on time. So for gaming, you might be easily be able to squeeze like 3 hours straight of gaming on here, which is not too bad. But the XS is just a really awesome device to consider. Next is the Galaxy Note 10 Plus. This is just an overall great buy. The thing is that it's a little more expensive, so it's kind of up there around the 360 still on Amazon. These Note phones just retain a ton of value, so it's a little more expensive. But it's still a great phone if you do decide to get it. It's aluminum frame, it's got a glass back. I think one of the best designs on this list. Still looks really awesome. You also have the built-in stylus as well too. Now this phone has the Snapdragon 855 with Android 12 with the latest One UI in the Adreno 640. You get absolutely amazing performance still with the Snapdragon 855. If you look at all these settings that you can play, FORTNITE, Call of Duty, PUBG, it all plays at really high settings, and you also get pretty good frame rates on this phone as well too. What I love about this phone is that the base model is 256 gigs and 12 gigs of RAM, which is a lot, so I really like that. And in addition to that, you also get SD card support. So for storage, this phone I think is one of the best on this list actually. You also have really good stereo speakers on this phone as well too. There's no headphone jack on here. You also have NFC, and then Samsung throws in a ton of stuff with this phone, like the Samsung desktop support and all of the One UI features as well too. So this phone has a under the display fingerprint sensor. Face unlock is on board on here. It's just really decked out with a ton of stuff that you actually find in a lot of the newer flagships. Now this phone I think still has pretty good cameras, a 12 megapixel standard, a 12 megapixel telephoto, 2x optical, and then a 16 megapixel ultra wide, and then you have a 0.3 depth sensor, shoots in 4K 60 with a 10 megapixel selfie cam that shoots in 4K 60. I think the image quality still looks pretty good on the Note 10 Plus as well too. So overall, like I said, this phone has aged like fine wine. It's really a really nice phone. So the battery life on here is also pretty good too. It's a 4,300 milliamp battery. Check out my battery drain test. You can easily get over 6 hours. But the thing about this phone is that you actually have 45 watt charging, so it charges pretty fast too, which is something that I really like. You also have the wireless charging and reverse wireless charging on board. So it's a really nice phone. big display at 6.8 inches, 1440p 2K displays, really beautiful. 498 for the PPI. Still, if I put this phone's display against the S22 Ultra, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference besides the high refresh rate. So that's how much, the display is just really good on here. All right, last is going to be the S10e. So the unique thing about this is that it's an older flagship, 200 bucks, really cheap, but it's more of a compact phone. So for anybody that likes the game on a smaller screen, this is going to be awesome for you as well too. We are running the Snapdragon 855 and Adreno 640. Performance wise, it's just going to be just as good as the Note 10 Plus. It's also running Android 12, One UI 4.1, and performance is going to be a beast on this phone. Gaming wise, check out my gaming test. Micro SD card support is on here, 128 gigs, 6 gigs of RAM. And like I said, the thing that I like about this phone is just super comfortable to game on at the 5.8-inch display, and then 1080p resolution with 438 for the PPI. It's a really sharp and nice looking panel. It is a AMOLED HDR10 Plus display. This phone also retains the headphone jack and has pretty amazing sounding speakers, especially for the size of this phone. It's just really loud, tons of bass. And then you have all your bells and whistles like NFC, the physical fingerprint scanners on the side, and it works great. One of my favorite implementations. Also face unlock. You have your reverse wireless charging on here, and it also has the Samsung desktop support on here as well too, which is pretty crazy. So the S10e's cameras are still pretty good. It's a 12 megapixel standard, 16 megapixel ultra wide. You also have 4K 60 video and then 4K 60 on the front with a 10 megapixel selfie. Image quality, again, for an older flagship, especially at this price point, is very good in my opinion. So I really like the phone. Like I said, aluminum frame, glass back, feels really good in the hand. It's IP68. It's just, nothing to really hate on this phone for. I think the only thing is like the battery life is not as good. It's a 3100 milliamp battery with 15-watt charging with wireless charging. The battery life, you can squeeze like 4 hours and 30 minutes. It's okay. But yeah, that's kind of the price you pay for a smaller phone. But other than that, I really love this phone. I always use it. So be sure to let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.